is Congressman Steve King, who has been reporting on Pigford, and he's been heavily involved in this. He did a press conference with Michelle Bachmann and Congressman Bob Goodlatte back in November before Pigford 2 was turned into law. And he has been at the forefront of saying that the discrimination did exist, that the black farmers did lose their land, they did suffer discrimination, and he's here to talk about what we're about to see here, and also about the means by which we can get justice for the black farmers. Congressman Steve King.
Well, thank you, Andrew, and I sincerely mean thank you, Andrew, because without Andrew Breitbart, this would not have been raised to the level that it is, and I don't know how we get Congress to pay attention to what's been going on with Pigford. For me, I look back on this almost a decade ago. I had a director from one of my counties from the Farm Service Administration who had been deployed to Washington, D.C. to help administer the $1.05 billion that were paid out in the initial Pigford settlements, Pigford 1, we refer to it. He did what he was assigned to do, except that he was also assigned to maintain maximum confidentiality with all of those records. His conscience overcame that, and he brought back with him a box of copies of applications. And sick at heart, that he believed that 75% of those applications were fraudulent. And so I actually at that time didn't connect all of the Pigford dots at all. I just knew there was a foundation for a problem that I couldn't get into. I couldn't find enough information to drill into it. And then, when they started to bring Pigford 2, the second initiative, the initiative that was brought by Bobby Scott from Virginia, Congressman Bobby Scott. I sat on the Judiciary Committee and the Ag Committee. There are only two of us that do that, Bob Goodlatte of Virginia and myself. And as that initiative was brought forward and we had hearings in the Judiciary Committee, then the dots connected. Then I started to drill into this and and as we were writing up the 2008 Farm Bill, I started to drill into it more. I sat way into the night, well past midnight, with a representative who was one of the top administrators of USDA, who told me that, yes, there are people that were discriminated against. And I want to make this point that I agree. I believe there were people that were discriminated against on the basis of race. And we should make those people whole that are victims of this. But we should not provide for an open checkbook for anyone that wants to allege discrimination, especially if they've never farmed, if they don't know where the USDA Farm Service Administration office is, or if they claim that there's an office in Chicago where they were discriminated against, because there isn't. And so as this thing moved forward, the major pieces of it come down to this: $1.05 billion that was the first payout of Pigford. That wasn't enough. We had testimony before the Judiciary Committee by John Boyd, the president of one of the black farmers organizations, and he testified that there were 18,000 black farmers in America. We had 94,000 applications. Now, if you presume that every black farmer in America was discriminated against, you've still got about 4.5 applications for every black farmer. Now, anybody can look at that and think, could there be fraud? We also know that President Obama, as a senator, initiated the legislation for Pigford 2. That was the Bobby Scott piece and others in the House, tied together with then State U.S. Senator Barack Obama in the Senate. Why would that be when he comes from a state that has just a few dozen black farmers? Well, they may have political motivations to do that. But in the 2008 Farm Bill, there was language in there that authorized $100 million to go into Pigford. And I raised the issue with the chairman of the Ag Committee, Colin Peterson at the time of Minnesota, and I said, you just opened the door to $1.3 billion additional Pigford spending, and much of it is fraud. And he said, no, it's not that. It's only $100 million. It's capped at $100 million, and it's going to close this issue and put it away. So you put a placeholder in, it's going to be $1.3 billion. We had an argument on that on the way over to the Capitol for votes one day, and we separated to go cast our votes, and that's where it ended. Well, the $100 million did go into the 2008 Farm Bill. It does say in there that that's to take care of any unresolved claims. The language in the bill supports what Chairman Peterson said, but the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, former governor of Iowa, former state senator of Iowa, whom I served with through my legislative time there, sat in my office and told me that I had voted for a bill that authorized Pigford 2 and directed him to open up Pigford 2 negotiations. It did not do so. The language supports Chairman Peterson's analysis, but regardless, Tom Vilsack and Eric Holder got together and sat down with John Boyd, and they negotiated this $1.25 billion and then pushed it through the legislature. And when they did, it was tied to the Cobell issue, which is a Native American claim on natural resources. It has a basis of legitimacy in order to get Pigford passed at the direction of the president. So think of President Obama directing Eric Holder and Tom Vilsack to go negotiate a $1.25 billion issue with John Boyd and then pushing it through the legislative process by forcing it to be tied to another issue at the end of the 111th Congress. Now here we are with more than 94,000 claims, perhaps more than 100,000 claims. And I don't know that percentage of illegitimacy, those that are fraudulent, but I will tell you that the USDA employee who sat past midnight with me when we marked up the Farm Bill had tears running down her cheeks at the fraud that she saw. She was crying because people that were discriminated against did not get compensated, and she was crying because of this crime against the taxpayers of America. And our choice now is to open up hearings in the Judiciary Committee and the Ag Committee. That's going to take the chairman of those committees to agree. And it's going to take a lot of public outcry, I think, before they're willing to take this on, because it's racially charged, it's politically charged. I believe it reaches to the president, and I think it has resulted in discriminating against people that should have been compensated because it paid a lot of lawyers and a lot of people that were part of this fraud and corruption. So I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to find a way. It's going to take congressional investigations. But we have a lot of information that's going to unfold here. And when you see things in video, think of what this has done. The Acorn videos showed us the culture of what goes on inside an Acorn office. The Planned Parenthood videos most recently show us the culture of what's going on inside Planned Parenthood. These videos show us the culture of what's going on to perpetrate fraud, especially across the South, against the American taxpayers. Thank you.